Welcome to Faith and Freedom. For the next few minutes, we hope to inform, inspire, and encourage you as we discuss the legal victories and challenges to your fundamental freedoms and religious liberties. Faith and Freedom comes to you from Liberty Counsel, a civil liberties education and legal defense organization. Join us now as Matt Staver, the President and General Counsel of Liberty Counsel, explains the latest legal issues all across this country in the courtrooms of America. Liberty Counsel is winning the battle for your constitutional freedoms.
The Obama administration is sabotaging the Federal Defense of Marriage Act. Hi, I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel and dean of Liberty University School of Law. Joining me is Matt Barber, the director of cultural affairs for Liberty Counsel and associate dean for the law school. Matt, this lawsuit that came out of Massachusetts where the federal judge, Judge Toro, said that Section 3 of the Federal Defense of Marriage Act, which defines for federal purposes marriage as the union of one man and one woman, is shocking in and of itself. What's even more shocking is the fact that the Obama administration is intentionally sabotaging the defense of the Federal Defense of Marriage Act, or DOMA.
What's particularly concerning is the Obama administration has already President Obama himself has already said clearly that he is opposed to DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act, which passed in 1996, signed into law by President Bill Clinton with, I believe, out of 100 senators, only 18 no votes. Overwhelming support for this common sense piece of legislation that was put in place as a firewall against the attacks against the traditional definition of marriage as we have known it into time immemorial. And now this judge, Joseph Toro, out of the blue decides that the definition of marriage as it has always been is unconstitutional somehow, divines out of thin air, that there is a constitutional right, as I often say, for Patrick Henry to marry Henry Patrick. It's absurd from a legal standpoint and from a public policy standpoint.
And to get to that point, he had to conclude that there is no rational basis for the law. And that means that there's no even debate as to the legitimacy of the law. In other words, there may be a lot of reasons against this law or any other law, just hypothetically, but if there is some debate, some possible reason that's rational, that at least is debatable for the law, then the government wins. He found that there's absolutely no debate. There's no rationality, no legitimacy to this law, and therefore found it unconstitutional. And part of the reason why is because the Federal Defense of Marriage Act was not defended by the Obama Department of Justice. Congress set forth at least 4 reasons for the passage of federal DOMA. Number one is the fact that the marriage as one man and one woman is the only place where procreation can occur between men and women. So there's obviously a governmental interest in procreating or creating our next generation, and that only happens between men and women. So having strong marriages helps our future generation and our society. Secondly, that children do best when they're raised with a mom and a dad. Thirdly, that same-sex marriage could undermine the legitimacy and the stability of marriage and thus affect our families and our society. And finally, that the federal government just simply can't give benefits to every single person who wants benefits. The judge never really addressed any of those. In fact, the Department of Justice says they're disclaiming procreation and child rearing. They don't believe that those are legitimate reasons for this law. They say that there's no difference between heterosexual and same-sex relationships with regards to either childbearing or best interests of the children. They defended it on this one thin reed that Congress has the right to preserve the status quo. That was their defense. And based upon that lousy defense, the judge ultimately found, well, that doesn't give any rational basis for this law.
An intentionally lousy defense. It was a sabotage. It was rigged. And the government, the administration, has an affirmative duty to zealously defend the Defense of Marriage Act. Not only are they not zealously defending it, they are intentionally sabotaging it. They intentionally sabotage it, signaling to Judge Toro to do exactly what he did. I don't have a whole lot of confidence that this administration is now going to defend it as it goes to the next level. And Matt, in the court papers submitted by the Obama administration, the government expressly, as we point out, disavowed the purposes set forth by Congress. In particular, the administration stated in a September 2009 memorandum that, quote, The government does not rely on certain purported interests set forth in the legislative history of DOMA, including the purported interest in, quote, reasonable procreation and child rearing. That is, but the child rearing, responsible procreation rather, and child rearing, it was central to the passage of DOMA. They're just throwing that out, the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, I mean, they specifically say they're not relying on the interest set forth in legislative history. Well, who knows best about the reason for DOMA than those who passed DOMA? It's not these Department of Justice people now in 2010, when this was passed in 1996, that can simply say those reasons aren't legitimate. Those were the reasons set forth by Congress. And those are rational, legitimate, debatable reasons. Obviously, child procreation occurs between men and women. And even though you have artificial insemination, it still involves a man and a woman. You can't get around the fact that two people of the opposite sex are the ingredient for childbearing. Moreover, you have the fatherless syndrome idea, where children raised without a father, particularly boys, have more significant consequences and all kinds of measurable sociological factors than children who are with a father. And same-sex marriage, what that does is it ultimately, in terms of the female-female lesbian relationships, eliminates father. Not only eliminates father, but skews the view of the absent gender. So those are clearly reasons for DOMA. They said, we're not going to rely upon the most compelling reasons for DOMA. We're going to just simply say Congress has the right to preserve the status quo, which is absolutely no defense at all.